Today we are continuing on with Chapter 5. We're moving on to Section 3, which is adding and subtracting functions, and then we're going to do some composition of functions as well. So, for example, we have the function f of x equals 3x squared minus 2x plus 6. We need to find f of negative 2. So, you'll notice that in the beginning it says f of x, and then in problem A, it wants us to find f of negative 2. So what's going away? Well, the x is going away and being replaced with the negative 2. So that's exactly what we need to do in the problem. So everywhere I see an x, I need to replace it with negative 2. So it's going to be 3 times negative 2 squared minus 2 times negative 2 plus 6. And then I just have an expression that I need to completely simplify. So negative 2 squared is negative 2 times negative 2, which is 4. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. And now I just need to finish. 3 times 4 is 12. 12 plus 4 is 16. 16 plus 6 is 22. So f of negative 2 is 22. Part B says find f of 1. So the same thing, except this time I need to plug in 1 instead of negative 2. So 3 times 1 squared minus 2 times 1 plus 6. Well, 1 squared is just 1, so 3 times 1. Negative 2 times 1 is just negative 2. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 minus 2 is 1. 1 plus 6 is 7. So when you're asked to find f of something or g of something, h of something, whatever's in the parentheses is what goes in the problem for the variable. Okay, this slide just talks about adding and subtracting functions. So if f of x and g of x are polynomial functions, then f plus g of x equals f of x plus g of x. And same thing for subtraction. So that's just the notation thing showing you that when f plus g are written in parentheses together, that means that you're taking the f function and adding the g function to it. So examples. So it says, let f of x equal 10x squared minus 3x and g of x equal 4x plus 1. So problem 1 says find f plus g of x. So that means I'm taking 10x squared minus 3x and I'm adding 4x plus 1. I didn't need to include any parentheses or anything with this one because it's just addition and I don't have anything that needs to be distributed. So the only thing I can do from here is to combine like terms and then make sure, like we talked about in the last lesson, make sure my answers are in descending power order. So the only thing that I can put together here is negative 3x plus 4x, and that's going to give me positive 1x. And then I can just write 10x squared and then plus 1. Now, is it in descending power order? Do I start with the highest exponent and go down to my constant? Yes, so that means this is finished. Okay, number 2 says find f minus g of x. So I'm going to start with the f function. Oops. So 10x squared minus 3x. Now I'm subtracting g, so that means I need to have a minus sign and then I need to put the g function in parentheses. This is a lot of times where students mess up because they just write minus and then they bring down the 4x plus 1. But the reason we need the parentheses is because this minus sign goes to both of those terms. So it's going to be 10x squared minus 3x minus 4x minus 1. And then I need to simplify. Negative 3x minus 4x is going to be negative 7x. And then check and make sure everything's put together that can be, and it's in descending power order. So that problem is finished. All right, number 3 says f plus g of 2. So we already found f plus g, that was our answer for number 1, but now it wants to find that expression at 2. So that means I need to take 2 and plug it in for the x's. So I've got 10 times 2 squared plus 2 plus 1. And I need to simplify. Well, 2 squared is 4. 10 times 4 is 40. 40 plus 2 is 42, plus 1 is 43. So f plus g of 2 is 43. Now number 4 says f minus g of negative 1. Well, my answer in problem 2 was f minus g. Now I just need to find the function at negative 1. So I've got 10 times negative 1 squared minus 7 times negative 1 minus 1. Okay, negative 1 squared is just 1. Negative 7 times negative 7 is positive 7. 10 times 1 is 10. 10 plus 7 is 17, minus 1 is 16. So f minus g of negative 1 is 16. Okay, now we're going to talk about composition of functions. So there's two different ways that this can be written. A lot of times I know when I was in middle school in Algebra 1, I saw this function, or this representation with the little circle. Kind of looks like a multiplication sign, but it's not. That means composition, so that means of. But a lot of times in our book, it likes to use this with the double parentheses. So the way that I always try to remember this is that the f function is moving to the g function. So f is moving to g. Same thing here. F is moving to g. So I usually draw the arrows to make myself double think and make sure that I'm doing this right, because if you do it backwards, your answer is going to be completely wrong. And you're going to see that in a second. Okay, but the inside letter is always moving to the outside letter. All right, examples. I have f of x equals 4x minus 1 and g of x equals x squared plus 5. Well, problem 1 says to find f of g. So that means g is moving to f. So that means x squared plus 5 is going to replace the x in the f function. So I'm going to have 4 on the outside. And instead of that x is going away and it's being replaced with g. So x squared plus 5 minus 1. Now we would never leave this as our answer because it can be simplified. So the 4 on the outside needs to be distributed. 4 times x squared is 4x squared. 4 times 5 is 20. And then we still have something else that can be combined, and that's this. So my final answer is going to be 4x squared plus 19. Double check it's in descending power order. It is. So that one is finished. Okay, number 2 says g of f of x. So that means f is moving into g. So that means 4x minus 1 is replacing this x. So I'm going to have 4x minus 1 squared plus 5. Okay, so when we have parentheses with a squared on the outside, a lot of times students just want to take that 2 and distribute it in. But if you remember, 4x minus 1 squared means this. It means the same thing written twice. And what was the method that we used to multiply those? Well, it's an acronym, and that is FOIL. So we need to FOIL this. Okay, my two first terms are 4x and 4x. My two outside terms, 4x minus 1. My two inside terms, minus 1, 4x. And my two last terms, negative 1 and negative 1. Okay, now we need to multiply and simplify here. 4x times 4x is 16x squared. 4x times negative 1, negative 4x. Negative 1 times 4x, negative 4x. Negative 1 times negative 1, positive 1. Now if we do this right, the o and the I can be combined. Negative 4x plus negative 4x is negative 8x. So I've got 16x squared minus 8x plus 1. So that is going to replace 4x minus 1 squared. And then we're going to bring down this plus 5. Okay, and then we need to make sure that everything's combined, so I need to put 1 and 5 together. So I've got 16x squared minus 8x plus 6. It's in descending power order, so that means number 2 is simplified. Okay, I believe this is our last one. So this one says we need to find g of f of 2. Okay, so normally we would go back through and we'd do that whole process again because we might not have already solved it. But we already know what g of f is. That's what we just found in problem 2. So that means I can just take 2 and plug it in for the x's in my answer. So 16 times 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 6. Okay, start simplifying. 2 squared is 2 times 2, which is 4. Negative 8 times 2 is negative 16. Okay, 16 times 4 is 64. 64 minus 16 is 48. And 48 plus 6 is 54. So g of f of 2 is 54. Okay, now this lesson has a lot of shifting gears. We talked about how to evaluate functions. We talked about how to add and subtract them, combine like terms, and then we also talked about composition of functions. But the process for solving all these is very similar. So make sure if you are confused or whatever, make sure that you reach out and ask for some help. Your work will all be on Google Classroom.